So guys, welcome to the next episode of the A in Education podcast. We've got Liz back on, and what we're actually going to talk about today is the art of communication and why communication and the language that you're going to use is going to be really, really important and impactful on your clients getting results. So, and again, this is going to be more of a chat that I have with Liz because I find this stuff very, very interesting. So when it comes to communication, and a lot of the things that we do nowadays is via the internet, do you think that's more of a challenge than what it would have been if we were doing things one-to-one, face-to-face?
100%.
How do we bridge the gap, in your opinion?
So communication effectively is about, one, trying to be understood, to be heard and to be seen. You have those needs and so do other people. And what the internet does is it creates barriers in the way of that. So if you and I were sat doing this in person like we are, I can pick up on your body language, I can look you in the eye. Whereas if you imagine if we're on Zoom, I can only see this tiny little square here. But then also on top of that, maybe there's, internet issues or whatever. It can feel really disjointed.
Okay.
Same way if you look at text, for example, you can't infer tone, you can't infer that. And the way you get over that is by, say, for example, you're an online coach, talk to the camera, let them get to know you. Let them see who you are. But again, this is where your discovery calls are really useful because you can then have your camera on, give some people those visuals, those cues. So it's really about making yourselves be seen as much as possible, I would say, because I bet you didn't know this. Over 55% of the cues that you take to infer meaning come from body language.
No, I didn't notice that high when you were high. Yeah. Okay. But obviously with the body language aspect of things, it's very, very hard to have a one-to-one conversation where you get to read the other person on the other side of it as well. So if we're giving Loom checking feedback, it's only us on that side of the screen. If you were to sort of rewrite the coaching playbook, how would you see it to be done differently with the technology that we have now? Would you get potentially clients to record a Loom over their check-ins? So you maybe get a bit of an insight into how their body language maybe, or the tone of voice, that maybe instead of you reading just a sort of a question, an answer to a question that you've given, or would you do anything a little bit more different to that?
So I'm a pragmatist at heart, where I look at it in terms of, you still have a business to run, but also your clients have lives outside of fitness. So how do you make it as effortless as possible? One thing I really value in terms of coaching businesses is photos are a snapshot in time, right? And often clients will go through a video reel, they'll pick the one they like the most, they'll upload it. Ask your clients to put a video on, because again, this will allow you to see the body language in the morning. Are they slumped over when they go to take their photos? Can you see on their face that actually there's a bit of disdain coming through because maybe they're not where they want to be. Maybe they're really proud. They're like, I've dropped 4 pounds this week and I'm feeling fantastic. That can really help you pick up on those body language cues. But also if they feel comfortable to, because again, there's a marketability element to this, say to them, voice note me back, because then you can hear the tone in the voice, you can pick up on those things. But what I would say to coaches as well, because what can happen is you do your Loom feedback, you send it, you don't get anything back from your client. It's like, cool, we'll follow the plan or whatever. Put questions in your feedback, make it so they have to get back to you, because then you can dig into stuff in the check-in more. So ask those open questions. I'm feeling a bit naff this week. I noticed you're feeling a bit... It's fine. You noticed you're feeling a bit naff this week. What's going on? What's up? Or, things like, I noticed you didn't talk about this week. So it could be something like, I don't know, they had something last week that was really struggling with and they've completely gone radio silent on it this week. Or the whole check-in is very beige. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Fine's not a real word. There's an acronym I say. I've never once believed someone say, I'm fine, and thought you're okay, right? So again, it allows you to dig into it. I've noticed that, this and this is happening this week. I just wanted to check in. How are things?
Okay. So Joel, you said before about clients sending videos over instead of doing check-in photos.
Yeah.
What would you do to get resistance from sending check-in photos itself? Would there be a way you work around that? Would you speak to the clients a little bit different to tell them the importance of it? Or would you just let them not do it for the time being until they may feel more comfortable with their own physique, X, Y, and Z?
So again, this is where the quality of your relationship and that initial rapport building is going to be so key. Because if you've built that relationship with someone, you can say to them, it's really good for all these reasons. But once you've built that relationship, you can say to them things like, I get taking photos is hard for you for whatever reason. Why is that? Again, get curious about it, because you may then find initially it's, I'm not where I want to be. And you can then have that conversation around, it's difficult right now, but I promise you in 8 weeks, however long, you'll be really glad you took them. Again, you're established coaches. Show them examples as to people taking photos in the beginning and then later on. But the quality of the relationship will determine everything, because you can ask those questions.
And in regards to language, is there any words that you would never use as a coach giving feedback?
There's 4 words everyone should eliminate from their vocabulary. Coach would not.
Okay.
Should, must.
Okay.
Always, never.
Yeah.
Always eliminate them. You should do something implies you don't want to do it and it's an obligation. Mm-hmm. I must do something, again, implies I've got this thing to do and I really don't want to do it. It's not good for you psychologically. Always and never, again, absolute and all nothing thinking there. You always do this. You never do this. No one ever or always does anything all the time. So those are things I'd really, really steer from. Things I'd also steer from, again, this is very client specific. If you have a client where you know they really struggle with certain words, so it could be something like you have a client who's come to you who has a past history of anorexia, for example, and they're trying to gain weight. Maybe you then know by that relationship with them, commenting on their weight is not a good idea. So instead of focusing in on, you've gained 1 pound this week, it'd be like, look at your leg press. You've added 5 pounds to that this week. That's incredible. But again, getting to know your client is getting to know the roadmap.
Okay, interesting. And then in regards to language and language used, would there be certain questions that you'd definitely have within a check-in? Or would you say it's very, very depending on your niche or whatever type of client you're speaking to?
I would say there's always really good standards to have. So things like, what has been the moment you've been most proud of this week?
Can I ask why that's important?
It's important to recognize your wins because, one, it builds the habit of seeing them. Do you know what confirmation bias is? Yeah. So for those of you who don't know what confirmation bias is if you think something in your head. So say, for example, next time you're driving, I'm going to look for a blue car. I guarantee you're going to see 5 blue cars that you wouldn't have seen otherwise because you're searching for it. What happens a lot of the time is that people are primed, particularly people who are coming to fitness later in life, they may have a more negative mindset for whatever reason. They will nitpick at themselves and they will look for it because they're primed to do that. It's confirmation bias working in action. So if you say to them, what was the win this week? Or what was the proudest moment this week? It starts that habit, that habituation of forming to see the positive. If they aren't doing it each week or they're avoiding that part of the check-in, again, that's something you can dig into as you build that relationship.
What would that tell you if they are ignoring that question? Like what kind of personality may they have or traits they may have?
So I would say if someone's ignoring seeing the positives, that's an indication that there may be a limiting belief or that there's this negative mindset coming in. They may not be in a growth mindset. So it shows you that there may be work to do to get them to see that actually things are going well. You may find those sorts of clients later down the line are the ones where if they're in, say, like a fat loss phase, it'll be like, I should have dropped 2 pounds this week and I only dropped 1. Or I only dropped this and then I suddenly have a meltdown because I've only dropped a certain amount.
Okay. Any other questions? So you've got wins the week. Anything else you think should be in a check-in?
One thing I really like is, what are you leaving behind this week?
Can you expand on that a little bit?
So it helps you build that awareness around something you've been doing this week, and it prompts the reflection of, is there something I'm doing this week I don't want to do next week?
Oh, so what would you like, pretty much what would you like not to do next week, I think?
Yeah, but it's sort of, what do you want to leave behind in this week? Because you've said, what's your proudest moment, but also, where can we improve? But it's also not phrasing it as, where have you gone wrong this week? Because again, confirmation bias, you'll end up looking for all the things you've gone wrong. It's more like, what are you leaving behind? What are you releasing this week?
Should all check-in feedbacks have some kind of positivity to them without any negative language?
Again, I would say this depends on your client. It's really useful to have in your standard form, I would say. You will find there will be some clients where if you don't have that positivity, it will naturally come through. So, lots of people generally have like, how has this week gone for you? They'll be like, I smashed this, I did this, I'm so proud of myself. But it's useful to draw it out for people because if you're not inclined that way, it primes you and prompts you to think about it in that way.
And when we talk about body language, how important is that for a coach to be not energetic all the time, but to actually show that they care. Like how important is it for a coach to turn up on their check-in feedback?
Yeah. So I think it's extremely important. But the way I help coaches see this is, imagine your coach turns up in their onesie or whatever, and they're just like, "Hi, Ali, how you doing? Where'd you check in this week?" You immediately don't get bought into that person because you're like, you don't care about me. Why would I try? So it is incredibly important how you show up, because one, it's modeling and it sets the example. But also two, as a coach in social media, there are loads of you. People buy into you as a person. So show up as your brand, because every time you interact with your client, it's a chance for them to make a judgment about you and your business.
Interesting. Last question on language, and then we'll be able to move on to the next topic. The sequencing of how you do a check-in. So this is the only time we really actually get to communicate with our clients on a week-to-week basis, if it's not via WhatsApp. Would you focus on maybe the things that they need to work on first, or in the middle, at the end? And would you sequence it in any way, or would you just do it client dependent, or do you have a strategy for it?
So it depends, to be honest. So there's something called primacy and regency effects. People will remember the stuff you put in front of them most first and last. The bits in the middle, they need to think about the least, and they will remember the least. The bits you really need them to think about, warm them up. So do those little warm-up questions of like, how's it been this week? How's your cardio? I would say the middle of the check-in should be what I like to call your metrics. Have you done your cardio sessions this week? How many minutes of cardio have you done? What's your steps? Because that's really the core bulk of it. Don't leave it to the end to ask the really hard questions. Warm up with really gentle questions. Get into your metrics. Do the hardest stuff. End on a positive note. That would be my suggested structure.
You should always end on a positive.
Again, you will know your client base better. Always put it towards the end of your check-ins. But again, you may, and lots of people do, put at the end of your check-in, how can I best support you this week? Because again, you end on that note of, as your coach, I'm here for you. So what do you need?
Right. And then anything else in regards to communication that you think everyone watching this would benefit from that they may not know?
Communication is a skill that you will work on throughout your entire life. The minute you think you've got communication sussed, that's when your alarm bells need to go off. It is a skill that you will never perfect, because no one ever does, but it is a skill you will always refine.
So guys, there's the next episode done in the podcast with Liz. Hope you've all enjoyed it. If you've got any questions, leave in the comment section below.